I just wanted to let everybody know that from now on, I'm going to start each video with me, or ending each video with me thinking about and reassessing and giving opinions about each chapter after I'm done reading it. So, such as, I really liked this character, I really liked how this went, or I really didn't like how this went. Hope you enjoy. Chapter 7. When all the initiates stand on solid ground again, Lauren and Four lead us down a narrow tunnel. The walls are made of stone and the ceiling slopes, so I feel like I am descending deep into the heart of the earth. The tunnel is lit at long intervals, so in the dark space between each dim lamp, I fear that I am lost until a shoulder bumps mine. In the circle of light, I am safe again. The erudite boy in front of me stops abruptly, and I smack into him, hitting my nose on his shoulder. I stumble back and rub my nose as I recover my senses. The whole crowd has stopped, and our three leaders stand in front of us, arms folded. There is where we divide. This is where we divide, Lauren says. The Dauntless Bone initiates are with me. I assume you don't need a tour of the place. She smiles and beckons them towards the Dauntless Born initiates. They break away from the group and dissolve into the shadows. I watch the last teal pass out of the light and look at those of us who are left. Most of the initiates were from Dauntless, so only 9 people remain. Of those, I am the only abnegation transfer, and there is no amity transfers. The rest are from erudite and, surprisingly, candor. It must require bravery to be honest all the time. I wouldn't know. Four addresses us next. Most of the time, I will work in the control room, but for the next few weeks, I am your instructor, he says. My name is Four. Christina asks, 4? Like the number? Yes, Four says. Is there a problem? No. Good. We're about to go into the pit, which you will someday learn to love. Christina snickers. The pit? Clever name. Four walks up to Christina and leans his face close to her. His eyebrows narrow, and for a second he just stares at her. What's your name? He asks quietly. Christina, she squeaks. Well, Christina, if I wanted to put up with Candor Smartmouse, I would have joined their faction, he hisses. The first lesson you will learn from me is to keep your mouth shut, got it? She nods. Four starts toward the shadow at the end of the tunnel. The crowd of initiates move on in silence. What a jerk, she mumbles. I guess he doesn't like to be laughed at, I replied. It would probably be wise to be careful around Four, I realize. He seemed placid to me on the platform, but something about that stillness makes me wary now. Four pushes a set of double doors open, and we walk into the place he called the pit. Oh, whispers Christina. I get it. Pit is the best word for it. It is an underground cavern, so huge I can't see the other end of it from where I stand, at the bottom. Uneven rock walls rise several stories above my head. Built into the stone walls are places for food, clothing, supplies, and leisure activities. Narrow paths and steps carved from the rock connect with them. There are no barriers to keep people from falling over the side. A slant of orange light streaks across one of the rock walls. Forming the roof of the pit are panels of glass, and above them a building that lets in sunlight. It must have looked just like another city building when we passed it on the train. Blue lanterns dangle at random intervals above the stone paths, similar to the ones in the lit choosing rooms. They grow brighter as the sunlight dies. People are everywhere, all dressed in black, all shouting and talking, expressive gesturing. I don't see any elderly people in the crowd. Are there any old Dauntless? Do they not last that long, or are they just sent away because they can't jump off moving trains anymore? A group of children run down a narrow path with no railing, so fast my heart pounds, and I want to scream at them to slow down before they get hurt. A memory of the orderly abnegation streets appear in my mind. A line of people on the right passing a line of people on the left, small smiles and inclined heads in silence. My stomach squeezes, but there is something wonderful about dauntless chaos. If you follow me, says Four, I'll show you the chasm. He waves us forward. Four's appearance seems tame from the front, by Dauntless standards, but when he turns around I see a tattoo peeking out from the collar of his t-shirt. He leads us to the right side of the pit, which is conspicuously dark. I squint and see that the floor I stand on now ends as an iron barrier. As we approach the railing, I hear a roar. Water, fast-moving water, crashing against rocks. I look over the side. The floor drops off at a sharp angle, and several stories below us is a river. Gushing water strikes the wall beneath me and sprays upward to my left. The water is calmer, but to my right it is white, battling with rock. The chasm reminds us that there is a fine line between bravery The chasm reminds us that there is a fine line between bravery and idiocy, Four shouts. A daredevil jump off this sledge will end your life. It has happened before and it will happen again. You've been warned. This is incredible, says Christina as we all move away from the railing. Incredible is the word, I say, nodding. Four leads the group of initiates across the pit towards a gaping hole in the wall. The room beyond is well lit enough that I can see where we're going. A dining hall full of people in clattering silverware. When we walk in, the Dauntless stand aside. They applaud. They stamp their feet. They shout. The noise surrounds me and fills me. Christina smiles, and a second later, so do I. We look for empty seats. Christina and I discover a mostly empty table at the side of the room, and I find myself sitting between her and Four. In the center of the table is a platter of food I don't recognize. Circular pieces of meat wedged between round bread slices. I pinch one between my fingers, unsure what to make of it. Four nudges me with his elbow. It's beef, he says. Put this on it. He passes me a small bowl full of red sauce. You've never had a hamburger before? Asks Christina, her eyes wide. No, I say. Is that what it's called? Stiffs eat plain food, Four says, nodding at Christina. Why? She asks. I shrug. Extravagance is considered self-indulgent and unnecessary, she smirks. No wonder you left. Yeah, I say, rolling my eyes. It was just because of the food. The corner of Four's mouth twitches. The doors to the cafeteria open and a hush falls over the room. I look over my shoulder. A young man walks in, and it is quiet enough that I can hear his footsteps. His face is pierced in so many places I lose count, and his hair is long, dark, and greasy. But that isn't what makes him look menacing. It is the coldness of his eyes as they sweep across the room. Who's that? Hisses Christina. His name's Eric, says Four. He's a Dauntless leader. Seriously? But he's so young. Four gives her a grave look. Age doesn't matter here. I can tell she's about to ask what I want to ask. Then what does matter? But Eric's eyes stop scanning the room, and he starts towards a table. He starts towards our table, and drops into the seat next to Four. He offers no greeting, so neither do we. Well, aren't you going to introduce me? He asks, nodding to Christina and me. Four says, This is Triss and Christina. A stiff, says Eric, smirking at me. His smile pulls at the piercings in his lips, making the holes they occupy wider, and I wince. We'll see how long you last. I mean to say something, to assure him that I will last. Maybe. But words fail me. I don't understand why, but I don't want Eric to look at me any longer than he already has. I don't want him to look at me ever again. He taps his fingers against the table. His knuckles are scabbed over right where they would split if he punches something too hard. What have you been doing lately, Four? He asks. Four lifts a shoulder. Nothing really, he says. Are they friends? My eyes flicker between Eric and Four. Everything Eric did, sitting here, asking about Four, suggests that they are, but the way Four sits, tense as pulled wires, suggests they are something else. Rivals, maybe, but how could that be, if Eric is a leader and Four is not? Max tells me he keeps trying to meet with you, and you don't show up, Eric says. He requested that I find out what's going on with you. Four looks at Eric for a few seconds before saying, Tell him that I'm satisfied with the position I already hold. So he wants to give you a job. The rings in Eric's eyebrows catch the light. Maybe Eric perceives Four as a potential threat to his position. My father says that those who want power and get it live in terror of losing it. That's why we have to give our powers to those who do not want it. So it would seem, Four says. You aren't interested? I haven't been interested for 2 years. Well, Eric says, let's hope he gets the point then. He claps Four on the shoulders a little too hard and gets up. When he walks away, I slouch immediately. I had not realized that I was so tense. Are you two friends? I say, unable to contain my curiosity. We were in the same initiate class, he says. He transferred from erudite. All thoughts of being careful around Four leave me. Were you a transfer too? I thought I would only have trouble with the candor asking too many questions, he says coldly. Now I've got stiffs too? It must be because you're so approachable, I say flatly. You know, like a bed of nails. He stares at me and I don't look away. He isn't a dog, but the same rules apply. Looking away is submissive. Looking him in the eyes is a challenge. It's my choice. He rushes into my cheeks. What will happen when this tension breaks? But he just said, Careful, Triss. My stomach drops like I just swallowed a stone. A Dauntless member at another table calls for his name, and I turn to Christina. She raises both eyebrows. What? I ask. I'm developing a theory. And it is? She picks up her hamburger, grins, and says, That you have a death wish. After dinner, Ford disappears without a word. Eric leads us down a series of hallways without telling us where we're going. I don't know why a Dauntless leader would be responsible for a group of initiates, but maybe it's just for tonight. At the end of each hallway is a blue lamp, but between them it's dark, and I have to be careful not to stumble over uneven ground. Christina walks beside me in silence. No one told us to be quiet, but none of us speak. Eric stops in front of a wooden door and folds his arms. We gather around him. For those of you who don't know, my name is Eric, he says. I am one of the 5 leaders of the Dauntless. We take the initiation process very seriously here, so I volunteer to oversee most of your training. The thought makes me nauseous. The idea that a Dauntless leader will oversee our initiation is bad enough, but the fact that it's Eric makes it seem even worse. Some ground rules, he says. You have to be in the training room by 8 o'clock every day. Training takes place every day from 8 to 6, with a break for your lunch. You are free to do whatever you will like after 6. You will also get some time off in between each stage of initiation. The phrase, do whatever you like, sticks in my mind. At home, I could never do what I wanted, not even for an evening. I had to think of other people's needs first. I don't know what I like to do. You are only permitted to leave the compound when you are accompanied by a Dauntless, Eric adds. Behind these doors is a room where you'll be sleeping for the next few weeks. You will notice that there are 10 beds and only 9 of you. We anticipated that a higher portion of you would make it this far. Okay. But we started with 12, protested Christina. I close my eyes and wait for the reprimand. She needs to learn to stay quiet. There's always at least one transfer who doesn't make it to the compound, says Eric, picking at his cuticles. He shrugs. Anyway, in the first stage of initiation, we keep transfers and Dauntless-born initiates separate, but that doesn't mean you are evaluated separately. At the end of your initiation, your rankings will be determined in compromisation with the Dauntless-born initiates, if they are better than you, and they are better than you already, so I expect. Rankings, says the mousy-haired erudite girl to my right. Why are we ranked? Why are we ranked? Eric smiles, and in the blue light his smile looks wicked, like it was cut into his face with a knife. Your rankings serve 2 purposes, he says. The first is that it's determined the order in which you will select a job after initiation. There are only a few desirable positions available. My stomach tightens. I know by looking at his smile, like I knew the second I earned the aptitude test room, that something bad is about to happen. The second purpose, he says, is that only the top 10 initiates are made members. Pain stabs my stomach. We all stand still as statues. And then Christina says, What? There are 11 Dauntless-borns and only 9 of you, Eric continues. 4 initiates will be cut at the end of the stage. The remainder will be cut after the final test. That means, even if we make it through each stage of initiation, 6 initiates will not be members. I see Christina look at me from the corner of my eye, but I can't look back at her. My eyes are fixed on Eric and will not move. My odds as the smallest initiate, as the only abnegation transfer, are not good. What do we do for cut? Peter says. You will leave the Dauntless compound, says Eric indifferently, and live factionless. The mousy-haired girl clamps her hand over her mouth and stifles a sob. I remember the factionless man with the gray teeth snatching the bag of apples from my hands, his dull, staring eyes. But instead of crying like the erudite girl, I feel colder, harder. I will be a member. I will. But that's not fair, the bronze-shouldered candor girl Molly says. Even though she sounds angry, she looks terrified. If we'd have known... Are you saying that if you'd known this before the choosing ceremony, you wouldn't have chosen Dauntless? Eric snaps. Because if that's the case, you should get out now. If you're all really one of us, it wouldn't matter to you that you might fail, and if it does, you are a coward. Eric pushes the door open to the dormitory. You chose us, he says. Now we have to choose you. I lie in bed and listen to 9 people breathing. I have never slept in the same room as a boy before, but here I have no other option unless I want to sleep in the hallway. Everyone else changed into the clothes the Dauntless provided for us, but I sleep in my abnegation clothes, which still smell like soap and fresh air, like home. I used to have my own room. I could see the front lawn from my window, and beyond it the foggy skyline. I am used to sleeping in silence. Heat swells behind my eyes as I think of home, and when I blink, a tear slips out. I cover my mouth to stifle a sob. I can't cry. Not here. I have to calm down. It will be all right here. I can look at my reflection whenever I want. I can befriend Christina and cut my hair short and let other people clean up their own messes. My hands shake and the tears come faster now, blurring my vision. It doesn't matter that the next time I see my parents on visiting day, they will barely recognize me, if they come at all. It doesn't matter that I ache at even a split-second memory of their faces, even Caleb's, despite how much his secrets hurt me. I match my inhales to my exhales. I match my inhales to the inhales of the other initiates and my exhales to their exhales. It doesn't matter. A strangle sound interrupts the breathing, followed by a heavy sob. Bed springs squeal as a large body turns and a pillow muffles the sobs, but not enough. They come from the bunk next to mine. They belong to a Candor boy, Al, the largest and broadest of all the initiates. He is the last person I expected to break down. His feet are just inches from my head. I should comfort him. I should want to comfort him, because I was raised that way. Instead, I feel disgust. Someone who looks so strong shouldn't act so weak. Why can't he just cry quietly like the rest of us? I swallow hard. If my mother knew what I was thinking, I know what she would give me. The corners of her mouth turned down. Her eyebrows set low over her eyes, not scowling, almost tired. I drag the heel of my hands over my cheeks. Al sobs again. I almost feel the sound grate into my own throat. He is just inches away from me. I should touch him. No. I put my hand down and roll onto my side, facing the wall. No one has to know that I don't want to help him. I can keep that secret buried. My eyes shut and I feel the pull of sleep, but every time I come close, I hear Al again. Maybe my problem isn't that I can't go home. I will miss my mother and my father and Caleb and evening firelight and the clack of my mother's knitting needles, but that is not the only reason for this hollow feeling in my stomach. My problem might be that even if I did go home, I wouldn't belong there, among people who give without thinking and care without trying. The thought makes me grit my teeth. I gather the pillow around my ears to block out Al's crying and fall asleep with a circle of moisture pressed to my cheek.